Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Trump has backed down on his tariffs. Again. Third time since the upper rate came into effect last week. I'm going to discuss why he's been forced to do this, how his attempted distractions are unlikely to be anything but bluff, and where this looks like it's headed at this point. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So Trump's now announced an easing of tariffs on car parts. I think it may just be for ones imported from Canada and Mexico. I'm not sure. He has stated that the production is coming back to the USA, but they need a bit of time to do that, so he's being flexible. This is distraction, by the way. One of my minor hobbies as a teenager was conjuring. This is a classic distraction. You do something to get your audience to look somewhere else because you're about to carry out a sleight of hand. Last week, when the decision about exempted computers and so on was made, there was no great announcement, like they tried to sneak it out, hidden. Didn't stop the news reporting on it because it was actually big news. So this time, rather than trying to hide the new capitulation, Trump has distracted his audience by talking about it. He's easing production back to America. And he's, while he was at it, threatening more new tariffs in the future. But I'll discuss how I think these are unlikely later in the video. For now, let's just explore why Trump has had to, for the third time in a week, capitulate, and for the second time to do so by exempting specific products. It appears that someone was able to explain one of the more idiotic consequences of Trump's chaotic tariff policy. Now, I've mentioned before that Trump's tariffs, far from encouraging production in the United States as intended, actually make it more expensive. So let me give you an example, not with cars, with computers, just to make it really easy to understand. So imagine there's like a large company in America. It could be a legal firm, could be some service-based company, right? So they want to buy a load of laptops for their staff. Now, let's say there are two suppliers who can meet the requirements, roughly the same price. So one is a Chinese company, and the other is an American company, right in the same time. Well, in the same town, sorry. You would go for the American company, wouldn't you? You're supporting your local economy. You'll get more personal customer service. But hold on. Trump's tariffs have changed things. Of course, if the tariffs were applied by someone with a brain, it would shift the odds even more in favour of the American company. Not with Donald Trump. America's answer to the question, how dumb is it possible to be and still be elected president? Because that American computer manufacturer, they may be making computers in America, but they have to import the batteries from China. They don't manufacture those. But the batteries, which are a substantial part of the cost of production, have got whack-eye tariffs on them thanks to Trump. So Trump has made the cost of production much higher for the computer factory in America. But you can import the laptops from China, complete with batteries, for zero tariffs now. So Trump, in his MAGA wisdom, has not priced foreign imports out of his domestic market, which is what tariffs are supposed to do. He's actually pricing domestic goods from his own market. And this is the rock and a hard place which Trump finds himself in, which means you should be highly sceptical of his promises to re-implement these tariffs at a later date. I would pay attention at this point to what he does, not so much what he says. And right now, what he's doing is making production in America more expensive than buying foreign imports for a range of vital high-value products. And the reason he was forced to do this is because he considered it politically easier to give Chinese computer companies a competitive advantage over American computer companies than to make American consumers have to pay way more for their stuff. And the idea that he's going to reverse this in a couple of months should be met with no small measure of skepticism. And if you're thinking that all of this makes Donald Trump sound a little bit dumb, it's even dumber than that. Although Trump is trying to achieve multiple aims with his tariffs, some of which are mutually exclusive, by the way, which is partly why the strategy is unraveling, one of the things he says he wants to achieve is encouraging more domestic production. Now, this is what tariffs are actually for. Now, nobody has actually applied tariffs in the way Trump is doing for nearly 100 years, but others have raised tariffs against their rivals, and it is always to stimulate more jobs and production at home. But the way he's applied them, and then rushed to adapt them, has done the opposite. In fact, that American computer company would actually sell more laptops to American customers if they moved to China at this point. Never mind what Trump says he's going to do in a couple of months. We don't even know what Trump is going to do later today. Never mind in 2 months. What he is doing right now is actively discouraging production to set up in America for a whole range of high-value goods. How is it possible to apply tariffs which serve to price foreign imports out of your market in a way which is actually making foreign imports more competitive than your domestic production? Shouldn't be possible. But then we remember that Trump bankrupted 2 casinos. Normally incredibly difficult to get permission to build a casino, partly because they're basically a license to print money. But Trump bankrupted 2 of them. So Americans cannot say they were not warned about this. But let's just take a look at this new surrender on car part tariff. So Trump says that they're going to start making those parts in America. They just need a little bit of time to make it happen. So he's going to be flexible and cancel the tariffs. Again, not clear on the details. Think it may just be for Canada and Mexico. But let's just examine this statement. First of all, how long are these new tariff exemptions going to last? Long enough to get the new factories set up and delivering the parts to American car factories? How long does that take? You need to purchase the land. You need to build a factory. Let's say you find a suitable vacant factory. It still needs fitting out for the new production. How long does that take? For more than a couple of months. You need the staff hired. You need the staff trained. You need supplies ordering. Normally takes several years. Specifically for car parts factories, years. And only so much of that time, if you're thinking, oh, a bit of red tape, Donald Trump will cut through that. Only so much is it for that. It actually takes time to build and fit factories. It takes time to get production up and running. Then the car manufacturers will need to be satisfied that the parts are up to snuff. They've got to check that they're fine. They're being produced. They can't afford to buy crap parts produced by an inexperienced workforce, resulting in lots of expensive recalls. Whatever Trump says, this production is definitely not moving to America anytime soon. And why would we think it is at all? If you're planning on, how much money is it going to cost to build this new factory in like Delaware or wherever the hell, right? Millions. So you need, any sort of investment like that, you're going to need a 5 or 10 year business plan. It's also chaotic. You do not know what the tariff situation is going to be like next week, let alone in 5 years' time. Why would we think that any of that production is actually moving to America, much less all of it? He's saying all of it. If he's removing the tariffs, those nice North American supply chains are back to being relatively friction-free again. What is the rush to spend millions of dollars building a new factory somewhere else when Trump may surrender on his tariffs altogether in a few months? I'm just not seeing it. I'll tell you what I am seeing, though. Trump announces his Depression-era tariff tribute act, right? Then last Monday, one of his advisors hints at a 90-day pause on the higher rates. Stock market goes up a bit. Then the White House denies it, flatly denies it. Stock market back down. On Wednesday, after a little bit of difficulty in the bond market, Trump backs down and announces actually the 90-day pause is coming into effect, which he strongly denied just the day before, right? On Friday, he exempts a load of computer and related products from the tariffs, including from China. In fact, it's especially from China. But because it didn't include all computer parts, he's made manufacturing computers in America more expensive than importing them from China. Art of the deal, my arse. Now, 7 days after denying any watering down of the tariffs, he has backed down a third time by exempting tariffs on car parts from at least some foreign markets, because the same sock puppets which explained what's going to happen to iPhone prices also pointed out how he's making American-produced cars more expensive. Like, think about it this way. A foreign car imports 25% tariff on them, right? But American-built cars have 25% tariffs on all of the parts they use where any of their production happens somewhere else, Canada or Mexico, right? Some of those car parts go to Canada, back to America, down to Mexico, back to America, to Canada, several times. And they have the tariffs applied every time they come back into America. So some of those car parts may have tariffs on them higher than China's got. So some American manufacturer may have a tariff rate more than China's. So now he's back down on that too. It's not to facilitate production back to America. It's because someone's pointed out he's making American cars more expensive. It's just this statement that it's to facilitate the production coming back. Explained it before. It's spectacularly unlikely to be true. And then let's say it was true. So are Canada and Mexico going to stand back while jobs are lost? No, of course they're not. The bottom line is that Trump thought foreigners were going to pay his tariffs. Now, how could that happen, do you think? Tariffs are paid by the importing market. Well, it can happen if exporters reduce their own prices to compensate. But the tariffs are so high, to do that, you would need a fairly hefty profit margin to begin with, which is never going to be the case for the vast majority, if any, products. So Trump is now starting to realise that actually the cost of his tariffs is paid in higher inflation and a higher cost of servicing the national debt. China holds a lot of that debt. But I think I want to talk more about the specific trade war between the US and China again this week before long in a separate video. What I will finish off with is this. I don't know what Trump is going to do. He's mad. He may actually be clinically insane. I don't know. I'm not qualified to say. But he is certainly highly irrational and of low intellectual capabilities. He has also specifically surrounded himself by other people who have neither wisdom nor intelligence, because he thinks his biggest mistake during his first term was surrounding himself by people who kept telling him he can't do that, right? So he's deliberately surrounded himself by people going, yeah, do that. It's mental, mate. Great stuff. And this is the result. So I don't know what he's going to do later today. I don't know what he's going to do tomorrow. I don't know what he's going to do in 2 months' time. What I do know is this. If he wants to somehow come up with his income tax cuts, he's going to have to keep watering his tariffs down. If he does ramp his tariffs back up, as he's promising, he will raise the cost of servicing that national debt again, meaning that his tax cuts will either be out of the question completely, or he will have to do serious damage to the dollar. The weaker dollar may well be good for some exports, but it's very bad for American consumers and inflation, the government killer right now. To subvert something Trump said about another of his atrocities yesterday, there is no outcome where Trump gets what he wants out of this. He can either stabilise the American economy, or he can have his trade war. He cannot have both. Back down or economic collapse. That is his choice. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.